Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I'm joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are we today?
I am doing great, Lake. I have a question for you.
Go for it.
How come you changed the intro to cruise a little smarter? Is that what you just said? Versus to help you cruise a little smarter?
I didn't even notice I did that, so.
Yes.
Oh,
So,
well.
All right, now I'm curious. So there's not even a real reason.
Nope.
I want there to be a real reason.
Nope.
Okay, fine.
This is why Christy's a lawyer, because she picks up on the smallest things like that.
Hey, listen, guest. We haven't introduced you yet.
Sorry, couldn't resist.
So I guess, Lake, let's introduce our guest.
Well, we are welcoming Steve and Anna Wake back to the show this week. Steve, Wake, how are you today?
All is well.
Not too bad. Happy to be back.
Already with the snark.
And we do have an exciting episode to talk about here. We are starting with a short escape, ABD, followed by a Norwegian Fjords cruise. So, Steve, Wake, why don't you tell us about the thought process of booking these two trips in tandem?
So just to go back, I guess, the main reason why we booked this trip is Andrew, our oldest, graduated this year from high school, and we kind of asked the kids what they wanted to do, where they wanted to go, and one of the things that they wanted to do was to go back to Norway. So we had done that as our second cruise, but they were pretty young, and so I think Andrew remembered part of it. Alex didn't remember any of it.
And I also think it was our second cruise, and the first cruise had been Alaska. So when you're little, those two things, they're kind of the same. I mean, they're not the same, but memory-wise, they're the same.
So that was the main reason for Norway. And then since it leaves out of Southampton, we just started kind of looking around at what ABD had to offer. And they had the 2-day short escape. I think they call it 3-day, but it's really 2 days with ABD. And the last time we missed a lot of the things in London, which is a whole another story. So we wanted to try and do as much as we could while we were there. And after, Chrissy's, time doing the cruise with ABD and then our Costa Rica trip, we knew that we'd be able to do a lot of different things and pack a lot of things in. So it just kind of intrigued us as to what they were going to see, what we're going to be able to see.
I'd say one of the huge benefits that, it's only been 2 now, but for ABD, for us, is just the logistics and that it's tight and your schedule, you can pack a lot in, get to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I really like the idea that I don't have to, I like a good guidebook and I like seeing what there is to see, but I really enjoy not putting forth the effort to plan all of that. So you did do a snippet. You did a couple of little talks over the cruise. So you did talk about the ABD at the beginning of that snippet. Let's just quickly go over what would you think the highlight was of that?
I would say the pub dinner on the first night and getting to see the Tower of London on a private Before the Crowds tour and afternoon tea at the hotel that we stayed in. All lovely.
Yeah, the pub dinner, I think we talked about it in the snippets. They had a guy show up to kind of entertain the kids, and he was kind of a loose Sherlock Holmes figure, and he was hilarious.
And it was great.
Yeah, he kind of made the dinner. But then, to your point, I think the Tower of London, we were supposed to go to St. Paul's, feed the birds, kind of.
Yes.
Yeah, St. Paul's, where they did kind of feed the birds, kind of from Mary Poppins. But on that day, they said that we were not doing group tours, so they changed that to the London Eye, which is basically like the large Ferris wheel that you see when you go into Orlando, except it looks over London, which it was cool. But I would say we had an amazing guide, Sarah. She was a blue badge guide, which means she's gone through some training, or a lot of training, and she was just phenomenal with the way she kind of told the story of the English people, London, the Tower of London, and then to me, the real highlight, which I didn't really realize, was the beefeaters that guard the Tower of London and the Tower Jewels there, the Queen's
Crown Jewels.
The Crown Jewels. They're all retired military people, and their families actually live in the Tower of London. So we had probably an hour with him, kind of having him talk about what it was like living in the tower, the history of it. His place is haunted after so many beheadings. I guess he said you're bound to have a couple ghosts still floating around. And so, yeah, I would agree with you. The Tower of London was kind of an amazing experience to be able to see that before all the crowds. And you had to get up early. That's the one thing about ABD, I guess, is you got to get up early. Staying up late to miss those crowds. But as we were coming out of the Crown Jewels, they just opened the gates. And so it was getting packed. And we had probably another half hour or so where we could just wander around and check it out. But that was definitely an amazing highlight.
How were the jewels? How close do you get to them?
It's cool. It was So they told us that if we weren't doing the private viewing, that you basically are on like a little, like the people movers at the airport, like, the moving sidewalk, that you would just stand on it and you just sort of get shuttled past the jewels. But we got to actually stand around the case, and the person would tell, or guide would tell us about what we were actually looking at. It was really cool. Like, probably, I don't even remember how much time it was in there, but it was far more than it would have been if we had just been on the little people who were like,
if you weren't
wow.
ABD.
Right.
Plus just the history of the different pieces. And because if you're an Anglophile, with King Charles just going through his coronation,
yeah, it was cool.
They had a lot of the pieces out that he wore. So they kind of talked about the significance of why he wore it and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So that
where
was
certain
pretty
crowns
cool.
came from.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
Oh,
Because it was one of those things that we were kind of like, big deal, but it was actually a big deal. It was really cool.
Been the thing, Steve. You've heard me talk about these dumb jewels for so many years.
Yeah.
It is one of the things I am most excited about my British Isles trip next year. We're doing the ABD British Isles, and we basically get to do your London part at the end. And I'm very excited about the crown jewels.
It's cool.
I will say the hotel is amazing. You're going to love it. It's like right near Covent Garden. And there was like two different people that they give you about 4 or 5 hours after your morning stuff before you go and do your final dinner. And there was a couple families that went and watched a play. Somebody went and saw Six, and somebody went and saw something else. So depending upon how motivated you are to do it.
There's, cheap day of return tickets at all of the theaters in London. So you just go. I think there's probably a central ticket booth, but you can just go to the theater and ask if they have any returns for the day.
Well, Hercules is going to be there next summer.
It is. And it's actually right close to the hotel at Drury Lane, because I took a picture of Drury Lane in the bus as we took off to Southampton the morning of when we left on the cruise. So
nice. We talked before the show, and I don't have a really cute way to make this a question, so we'll just make this comment. You talked about how you liked the hotel and how the hotel itself could have been like $1,000 a night, just the hotel where you guys stayed. And that was built into the price of the tour. I was looking at the price, the hotel that we stay in Dublin. So my ABD next year starts in Dublin. If I were to buy that hotel for like 3 nights, I think it was like $1,500 or $1,600 or more a night. May have even been $2,000 a night. But ABD actually works out a really good price ahead of time. It's still very expensive, but through ABD, it would be like $800 a night
for that night. Yeah.
Right. Instead of $2,000 a night.
Yeah, that definitely factors into it. And I was just like winging that with $1,000, probably a lot more than that, especially in the summer. Yeah, it's definitely a value of staying or traveling with ABD. And plus, honestly, sometimes you're just lazy, and like watching our Facebook group, and it was like trying to figure out how to get from London to Southampton. And we just woke up in the morning, the bus was there. There was like
breakfast. The bus was there.
We had breakfast. They gave us the fast pass to get on the ship. Took us like 15 minutes to get through everything and get on the ship. It felt like you and concierge, whisking us away to the dream. So it was.
Yeah. The kids were like, okay, so just this part, this bus, and just getting to skip the line, like this is worth whatever you pay. This is the best.
But if it's in your budget, and
right.
Obviously ABD offers things in Rome, also in Barcelona and some other different places. So if it's in your budget, it's a great way. And everybody talks about ABD and the connections you make with people. It's tough with a 2-day, but we had just an amazing dinner the last night with a couple. They were both in the healthcare, and they were both surgeons. Or one person worked for the gal.
Well,
she worked for the CDC,
and he was the surgeon.
Yeah.
And they both kind of said you can't really have 2 surgeons in the if you're going to have children, you can't.
So we just laughed. We had just a great dinner with them. So definitely made some good connections, or had a good
for sure.
That. So definitely 2 thumbs up for us.
Awesome. Yeah, that Barcelona Short Escape is on my bucket list for sure. I really want to just go back to Barcelona. But moving on, heading towards the port here. How was our embarkation process?
Oh, sounds like it was easy.
It was super easy. Yeah, like the best ever.
And I've still got the card. There's not a date on it. I'm going to try and use it next year when we go to Southampton as well, too. So I don't think it'll work, but anyways, yeah, good souvenir. How's that? No, super easy process. I think, I can't speak to this totally, but definitely there was people waiting outside. And so I think they were honoring the, your port arrival time. So just still, as they've been doing in Port Canaveral, you show up too early, you're going to be waiting outside. It was super easy getting on the Dream. And I do feel like the crowd spread out a little bit more in Europe. Like there were still people getting on throughout most of the day as people spend time in London or whatever else.
Right, the later time.
Yeah, Port Canaveral, or you have like a large amount of people that just want to get on as soon as they can.
Awesome. Well, what kind of stateroom did we book for you and your family?
So we booked, what is it, the larger veranda So
Like
I can't
the
remember
big
the family veranda. So it's a longer one just because the kids are getting bigger and
They're full-size people now. Like,
yeah. I was like, I don't want to put Alex up in the top bunk. So you get the extra one. And I remember Nova talking about didn't you guys have that, Christy, that Nova slept on, the one that comes down? No. Am I wrong?
Well, no, she slept on the bunk bed, but Blake actually agreed to go up his first time sleeping on the bunk bed.
Oh.
But it had the Murphy bed, and so the kids, like, nobody had to sleep in the top bunk. They had their beds, and it just being a little bit longer, it's got more space,
which was nice. Like just
bigger clothes. As Blake gets bigger, everybody's clothes gets bigger. It takes up more space.
Seems like such a weird thing, but it is like just even kid pants are smaller than man pants.
Oh no, I am well aware of his tiny little space that for the most part we're going to have to start taking more luggage. Wait, I have a question.
Sorry, this is the first time that the kids actually used the hangers closet because like they couldn't just shove their stuff in the drawers. They had to actually, so we're like, oh, we got to call and get more hangers. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
You need a nice things. So you guys are the people that would walk to a hotel or to the port rather from your hotel if you could, and you like to have a carry-on bag. Did you check luggage for your many week vacation?
We did.
I mean, Anawik's got a big bag and she's got a huge like kind of duffel bag that she kind of carries on, but the rest of us just have small like roller bags and it works.
Andrew has a pretty good sized backpack.
Yeah.
That he also uses. Yeah. So we check the big bags with all of the toiletries and stuff and then carry on stuff like shoes and things that are bulky and yeah.
But we do have a take for Disney with as older adults now. They do a wonderful job with the room as far as like you walk in, they've got the bed, they've got this amazing curtain that's dark. You put your kid behind the curtain and then you and your significant other can stay up and watch TV or do whatever it is you want to. But really what they need to do is they need to reverse that at some point for older families that are still with bigger kids, because we need to be on the other side of the curtain with a nice bed. And when they come home at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, then they're not traipsing through.
Get to their beds,
Yeah, so I think they just need a couple staterooms of reverse like that for the families that still stay together and are too cheap to book 2 separate staterooms when their kids get bigger. But if you could talk to them about that, Lake or Christy, I'd appreciate it.
I have so many comments I would like to make on so many different topics that you just discussed, but I feel like we should just move on.
Okay, let's go.
Not have parenting discussions now. Okay, so you get on board, you're in your family veranda, people have unpacked, they've hung their luggage, it's very exciting. Were you guys sit down lunch or cabanas lunch?
Yeah, we're just cabanas.
Cabanas lunch.
Yeah.
I don't want to be contained. I want to eat quick and get out.
The Creases must be free.
Which is our problem with brunch on C Day. We gotta go.
They can't be tied down.
Can't be tied down. Exactly.
Free spirits.
Exactly.
That would have been nice though to go to brunch when you were cruising that fjord.
That was true. Yes, that's true.
Well, turning towards the cruise and all of these amazing ports, you did mention that you have taken a similar cruise before. What were you most looking forward to getting back to and seeing?
The fjords are amazing. And we did not go to the same small fjord town that we went to last time. So I was looking forward to seeing Olden, which is the fjord town, and checking out the town, checking out the scenery.
Yeah, I would say the fjords is the main point for going to Norway, but the second part is, for the most part, most of the stops they park right downtown, and maybe there's 2 ships in town. I've never seen more than that. A lot of times you're the only ship in town.
Right, I think only Stavanger, but there was another ship, right?
Yeah. So you kind of got the place to yourself. I mean, Olesen was awesome. You like literally walked off the ship, you're right downtown, and you can wander around to the different shops, the different restaurants. We did a hike up over the top of a hill, so you had a great view of the city and everything like that. So they're easy ports to do.
Yeah, super easy, and not super huge towns.
And everybody speaks English there, so if that's a language barrier thing that you're worried about, I mean, obviously we still try and say hello and goodbye in Norwegian or whatever else, thank you and whatnot. But it's just they're super easy cruises to do, I think,
for sure.
Awesome. Well, do we want to stick with the ship and then get into the ports? All right.
We got a couple things on the ship we can talk about that we were excited about. Let's start with wine tasting.
Oh, love that.
Stem to stern.
So yeah, the first sea day I had a massage, and then we went to wine tasting in the afternoon. Danny from Romania.
Yes.
Who was great. Like super. I mean, one of the things that I like about most of the drink tastings that we have done on our Disney cruises is that they're educational. You know, they're not just like, oh, this is telling me about like what I'm actually drinking that I'm going to be able to know as soon as I take a sip of it, but more just history. And it was also wines that you wouldn't normally pick, I think is what he said. It was great.
I feel like the champagnes, they kind of do the same ones over and over, but with wine, it's up to the sommelier what they want to bring out.
Right.
And so we had a Greek one, and what was the other one? Was a little bit different.
Well, there were 2 Chiantis at the end.
Yeah, but he was just hilarious. It was like learning, funny, snarky. Everything was good about it, and we saw him. Don't be afraid to use them either. If you do those wine tastings, like if you go to Paolo or Remy or Enchanté, I mean, they're amazing in what they'll recommend for you. And so we talked to him up at our Paolo dinner, and he's like, hey, if there's anything you do, just make sure you put this in the comment section because we're really trying to build up our team here and everything else. And so, you know, it's just another one of those cast members that probably doesn't get a lot of, you know, feedback, I guess, through the comment sections and everything like that. And so I didn't feel bad for him asking that because he did such an amazing job. And we've had those experiences over and over again with the different sommeliers. So that was really definitely one of the highlights on it. The other one's the music they had. You guys have been to, I'm trying to remember which cruises we've done together, but on the Wonder, every time I've been to Tiana's, the guy that plays the bass in the Crawdad Crooners, he was on board the ship this time, but he was like playing in this like trio band. Yeah, there's a couple different bands. They had a trio band that played like 80s, 90s country music all around the ship. They were super fun. But then they did what's it called? A mouse something or other.
I can't remember.
They had like one of those, you know, good old Disney names and everything else, but they took Disney music and they jazzed it up and played it prior to like during
between dinners.
Yeah, between dinners when you're kind of waiting before you go into the dinners and everything like that. And it was super fun. It was a great show. I've never really actually stood in the lobby and watched.
There was a lot. We did a lot of like standing in the lobby watching music this time. I mean, usually we're going to see other performers things in like the other kinds of spaces, but they had a lot of really good stuff in the lobby.
And then the last one was a keyboardist he was doing like Beatles sets and Billy Joel and everything else. So it was kind of more like in Ooh La La when we've been there, it's been a little bit more sedate, but Hank, he was rocking. He had the place going.
Yelling out requests.
Yeah.
It's craziness.
So I think the music, the wine tasting, and then we don't generally go to any of the Disney shows anymore. Sorry. I am looking forward to Moana. I cannot wait to see Moana. I think Hercules is going to be amazing, but I didn't really need to see Beauty and the Beast again. But they did have
Andrew went with the 1820s, though.
He did do that. Yeah.
Which is very sweet.
Which we can talk about that real just quick, too. But the shows that they have on over there were really good, too. They had like a boy band, so Marcus Monroe would have loved it. Being the big boy band fan that he is, and I know Christy's kind of a boy band fan from back in the day. But they took music and
they took modern music and mashed them together and did it in like 30s, 40s style. They were called the Flyboys, and it was great.
Yeah.
You know, really good. They did a, where did we see it? Wait, anyway, they did like a little venue show, and then they did it in the main theater one night too, which is, it was great.
A lot of fun things to do around the ship. We did trivia. Of course. We kept our record up by not winning. Andrew and his team won twice though, so we got 2 of those Mickey medals.
Didn't have your ringers with you.
We needed Lake and Katie for the MCU trivia, that's for sure. So
we didn't even try. There were some that we were like, we're not going to be good at that.
Yeah. But the Dream looked amazing. Yeah. Just I like that class of ship. The Dream and the Fantasy, a little bit more room than the Magic and the Wonder. The adult area was really nice. Right. You know, I mean, this is like another thing that was kind of nice. Like no matter what was going on, I mean, the sea days were actually pretty nice, except for the day when we missed Hoggeson.
Yeah, that's right.
But I mean, you could literally go and find a seat anywhere at any time. Like people would get up and they'd leave and they would take their stuff with them. They didn't go grab a chair and like hog it for the entire day. So that was a really nice thing about the ship. Yeah. So I've kind of noticed that more over in Europe.
I would love to talk more about the 1820 Society because we very rarely talk about that.
So after Christmas, Andrew had an amazing time on our Christmas cruise. And then on the way home, he realized that by the time we went on our next cruise, he would be 18. And he was a little bit sad that he wasn't going to get to be in the vibe. And then none of us have really paid attention to the stuff that's on the schedule for 1820s. And I mean, we saw a group of at Christmas biking around Castaway, but that's kind of it. And so he, like, as soon as we got on board, he like scrolled through the schedule and found out what stuff had planned. And he said, I don't know how many of them there were total, but probably right away the first night he had a group of like 10, 12 kids that he was hanging out with the whole time. They went to shows. They had lunch every day together. If we were on the ship, they stayed. This is probably getting ahead, but they stayed up all night, the last night of the cruise, so that they could watch the sunset
Sunrise.
Sunrise as we pulled into port, which I don't ever want to do, but it was like a really cool thing for them. He loved it.
Yeah, they definitely have things planned, and so they definitely made points of going to the planned things, and it was everything from trivia. They had like special, like when they take over the 687 bar, which is the pub where it was just 1820 trivia, so it was just all of them in there doing a trivia session. But a lot of the stuff was like going to the adult show down in, I want to say the Tube, but it's the other.
Yeah.
But I mean, they had all those things planned, and for people that are coming up on that, if you have kids that you're going to bring with, look through the app and you'll see there's just a ton of stuff. And so not only did they do the planned things, but then they
did, like,
through their group chat
tasting. Yeah. I mean, they
non-alcoholic drink tasting, and through the app they got together and did a lot of things beyond that too.
Did they have a host? Like,
yeah. They did have like, especially that first night, like, kind of like icebreakers and the edge and the vibe. Like they had a group, but they don't really have a place, right? So I think that first night they were just in the lobby.
Yeah.
I think, like 10 o'clock or whatever. I can't remember.
Actually, they took over the top of the edge in the funnel, which is going away. And they were kind of bummed about that because they're going to build
the observation. Or whatever. Yeah.
So that was kind of their like,
they're trying to hang out, right? So then they're not like in the main space. But yeah, so like they had a counselor that kind of coordinated just like they do for the edge and the vibe. Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was more structured than we thought it was going to be. It was that, and more kids than I think he thought it would be, which helped too, and it was good because, with that 1820, right? Like he's headed off to college. And, a lot of the group was, they're heading into sophomore, junior year. And so like he felt kind of, he got some good, like across the country college advice too, which was good for him. He liked.
No, I was texting with somebody else about like, their kids being younger and stuff. And I was like, well, Disney may last longer than you think, because I mean, he had a great time on it. And I could see Blake doing the same thing.
Yeah. They loved it. Yeah.
Well, let's stick with the kids club then before we move on, or at least activities for your children. How did Alex do? Did he go to the Vibe?
He did go to the Vibe. It's the same thing, like first night icebreakers. He found a group. I mean, they're both pretty social kids, so and kind of the same thing. Like Alex is going to movies and going to do the stuff with the kids. And I mean, it didn't seem as like, maybe he just wasn't telling us that's what he was doing, but it didn't seem as like structured as what Andrew had going on with his group, but he definitely had kids that he was hanging out with.
There was a lot, the Olympics was going on, and so they were playing the Olympics up in the Vibe. They got a huge TV set up, TVs around, and so there's a lot of them just kind of hanging out watching the Olympics at times, and gaming. I can't remember, Guitar Hero, I guess he hit some new records, so I guess we have to buy Guitar Hero again or something. But yeah, no, overall he had a great time too. And what was cool was like all of his friends were from Scotland and England, so it was kind of cool to get that. Just to hang out with people from another country, to kind of hear about their way of life as well.
Yeah, I mean, like we got off the ship on the last day and driving into our hotel where we were going to stay. Actually, we went to Stonehenge, and then we're driving to the hotel, and he's like, "All my friends are home already. We haven't even gotten to the hotel yet." It's weird.
Yeah, they're all texting. So
yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we touch on dining real quick, and then we'll start to get onto these ports. Now, you are probably experts when it comes to dining on the Dream. Why don't you go ahead and just give us like your highlight dining room and highlight meal from this sailing, not including specialty dining, which I'll get to in just a moment.
So it was the food was awesome.
Yeah.
We had a great serving team. We were kind of a wonky family because the kids were leaving early, or Alex was leaving early at times. And so they were pretty easygoing with us, but we had just an amazing serving team that was funny. They put up with whatever we wanted to do.
We changed too, which we don't usually do because we wanted, yeah.
That's anyways. We went and changed. We were trying to. One of our servers he was on the Dream last year. I was trying to see if he was on there, so we were trying to hook up with him, and that didn't quite work. And then we wanted to change because we didn't want to go to. Nobody wanted to go to Enchanted Garden 3 times, I guess. So we changed it around to do Enchanted Garden twice. Yeah.
So that would be the Apollo.
Yeah, but I would say I think I was texting with Nova and maybe you, Christy, about the Pirate Night menu, because they did have a Pirate Night. Although they didn't run the Pirate Night menu, they have a frozen night also when they go up to Northern Europe. And so they had a frozen menu. And so I was kind of joking about like how good that was going to be. And it actually had my favorite dish. It was this mustard salmon. The salmon was just amazing. And with the mustard sauce, it was by far so if you get the frozen menu in Northern Europe, look for the mustard salmon. It was if that's in your interest. But yeah, that was my favorite.
All my usual stuff,
Yeah.
like the things that I just look forward to, but
Not the escargot.
no.
Well, not
fried brie.
Wait, but yeah, team fried brie.
No, we still got the escargot. Yeah, you got to have the escargot that first night when you're in Royal Palace. So yeah, it was good. I still like Royal Palace. I think the best. And I do appreciate, I like a show, but I like the fact that the dream and the fantasy still have two restaurants where you don't have to be entertained and you can just actually have a conversation. And I enjoy that.
All right. Well, moving towards specialty dining, you can't be tied down for a 3-hour meal at Remy and you'd be kicking and screaming to try to get you a Palo brunch for whatever crazy reason. But we do have something new with your Palo dinner. And as we mentioned before, Andrew turned 18 and got to join you guys for Palo. How was that experience and what did he think of it as well?
He loved it. And it was really cool. It was just cool to have him there with us. We did feel a little bit guilty about poor Alex being by himself, but one of the families that was sitting near us adopted him and he ate with them on that night. So that was kind of fun. It was just really cool to have that experience with Andrew. And it was probably a good, rite of passage kind of thing. And helps mom and dad realize that he's actually an adult now. He gets to do these things and it was cool.
Yeah, it was.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. As soon as we got on the ship, he was looking at the Palo menu and trying to decide what he should order. And should he do the prefix meal or should he order a la carte? And he kind of kept going back and, but even there was it's a big decision, which is kind of cute.
Well, what did he choose?
He got the pasta.
He did get the pasta.
Yeah, pasta. So
penne. And I actually don't even remember what he got.
Yeah. No, that was it. He got the penne pasta was like his main dish. So, and then he got a salad like you. It was special to have him up there. Pro tip, which I will say, if you want to get a picture with your significant other or family, whatever, when you're walking out, stop underneath the Chihuly glass, which is in the ceiling on the Dream of the Fantasy, and take your picture there.
It was a cool picture.
It was a really cool picture.
Yeah, kind of the entry instead of, on the Magic and the Wonder, you by the sign is the best spot, but that's not really the entryway. It's not really conducive to that. But under that chandelier is really cool.
The other thing that was kind of cool is it was the day we left Olden, so we were coming out of the fjord. And so it was 7 o'clock and it was still light out there. So we were kind of watching the scenery as we were dining and everything else. And that's a good tip too for Alaska. If, as you're kind of leaving the port, if you can do your Palo a little bit early as you're watching the scenery, especially leaving Juneau, heading south is towards Ketchikan. That's a great time to be up at Palo.
Awesome. Well, what a special experience, especially right before you send them off to college.
Right.
But why don't we go ahead and turn towards the ports here? Well, we were supposed to have 4 stops, turned into 3 stops. Why don't we go ahead and start with your first port, Stavanger?
So Stavanger, I will say this is the first time that in Europe we've actually booked our own tours outside of Disney. And once again, it was easy because it was you just get off and you can walk into town. And the things that we had planned were going to be right there. We only did one of them because one of the ports is canceled. So Stavanger, we wanted to kind of just do the same thing. There's a fjord called Lysa Fjord, and you can get in a boat and it'll take you up there. So it's a long boat. Well, it's not long. It's probably about an hour and a half boat ride.
It's really pretty.
But it's amazing. You go up this fjord. They stop at a bunch of different waterfalls. A cave, Pulpit Rock. You're underneath it. It was kind of overcast and rainy and drizzly as we went down the fjord, so we couldn't quite see Pulpit Rock that time.
Which made us kind of glad that we chosen the hike to Pulpit Rock on that day.
Right, and then they stop at a little place and where you can get Norwegian pancakes, which is basically a waffle, and then you put kind of clotted cream and then some type of jam on top of it and some coffee. So that was really cool. That was what we did last time, and that's kind of what we gravitated towards. There's a lot of little history things you can kind of do in Stavanger, I think, but I think we really wanted to go see the scenery.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me go back and say one thing about Stavanger, because this was kind of if you do it next year, depending upon where they stop, I'm not sure if they're stopping there or not, but there's a berth right downtown and a Costa ship had it. So we had to berth about 30 minutes away from downtown. And there was like some consternation whether Disney was going to offer buses, and Disney didn't say anything. People tried calling Disney Cruise Line and asking about it. But so people were like booking taxis and trying to figure out how they're going to get downtown. But they had buses, and that's what they did last year. That's what they did this year. So I think kind of going forward, I think they probably plan on having this kind of expect that as well. So they had like a bus going every 15 minutes so you could get downtown if you didn't have anything necessarily planned as far as the Port Adventure wise goes.
And when we got back, there was a pretty significant line to get back on the bus, but it moved quick. And but I would imagine if you're in line waiting for the Disney bus, they're not going to leave you. It's,
So Olison, once again, this time we parked literally right downtown. We got off early. The kids slept in, and we were like, okay, well, just make sure we booked a kayak tour on ourselves because we couldn't book it through Disney. There was a lot of platinums and beyond. So it was some of the shore excursions sold out pretty quickly.
Pretty quick, yeah.
So, but actually, we ended up using the exact same. I didn't know it until the tour, till the day we were there. But we ended up using the same place that Disney used for quite substantial price difference, a lot cheaper. So we got off. We just wandered through the town, looked at some shops, and we found there was like a little park, and there was like an observation area that you could see. And so we started walking through the park, and then there was a trail. Everybody else, we saw other passengers coming down, so we just followed the trail up and got a great overview of the city, looking down on the ship and the little town of Olison. So that was kind of cool. And then by about that time, it was time to meet up with the kids and then do the kayak trip.
Yeah.
How long do you think that walk took?
If you went all the way to the top,
we only went there's like a halfway.
Yeah, if you went all the way to the top, it was maybe like 15, 20 minutes. It was.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Quick.
But it was steep. I sweat a lot.
It's a lot of sharing, Steve.
Yeah, a lot of sharing today. Yeah. A lot of sharing. So I was like, I didn't want to it was a nice day there. So
it was nice.
Yeah. So we only went about halfway up, which is, you still got a great view from there.
That's awesome. So how did you decide who to book these tours with that you did on your own?
I just Googled Olison as far as like what was offered there. And then there was, several different, like from Viator, which I know you're not a total fan of, Chrissy.
I don't have any, I don't use them, but I know lots of people that do.
I would say with Viator, just be careful what you book through them. Because we had people that booked through Viator and they canceled because...
Just make sure that it's a highly rated one. Make sure that maybe even check with the actual company.
I'll just say, if we're talking about these other tour companies, this is why I like Project Expedition, because they go in and literally vet every company, and the money is held in a trust account until you actually go. And actually, Project Expedition will let you build your cruise very easily. You can see all the different excursions that they offer in theory in the time that you will be there for your cruise. So it can be Disney, it can be celebrity, it can be whoever, right? If anybody wants a Project Expedition link built for their cruise, it's very easy for me to send one off. I can send it off. Obviously, you can ask if you're working with a travel agent for them to send it off to you. They pay us like a tiny commission, but either way, it's really cool. Like, I'm looking at it for my own. It literally goes through each port. And if there's something you really want to do, you can ask Project Expedition to see if they will work with that company. And that'll actually give you an idea about the company as well if they're not. I did find, though, for Norway, they don't have a ton of options, but there are some. And I like that they would be willing to expand if you reached out as well. So
I would say there's just, honestly, looking, even if through Viator, there's not as many options in Norway. They're kind of limited from each port, and they're all kind of the same thing. I guess this is what I've learned about Viator. I kind of look at them as like Expedia. Do your homework. It's a great place to go and see what's available. But if you can do it after you find that, instead of booking through Viator, book directly through the company. Go to the company's website, the tour company's website. And that's what I ended up doing here. Was just I found a kayak place that was had a lot of really ratings. They do kayaking, they do snow skiing, they do all kinds of different things, and it worked out really good. Good equipment, great. We had 3 great guides.
Right.
Took off right downtown past the ship and probably paddled about an hour along the coastline, and then they kind of stopped and they tell us like different history of Norway as we kind of went along. Talked a lot about the wildlife, the fjords. He pulled up at one point, one of the guides pulled up a jellyfish. He's like, there's 2 different types of jellyfish in the fjords. One you can touch and one you can't. This one you can touch. And so he kind of passed it around, and one of the guides pulled up some seaweed that you could eat. And so it was a really cool. We just like being on the water. We like doing things that are active, but also getting not only the scenery, you get some history along the way too.
That sounds really cool.
Awesome. Anything else on Olison?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Then why don't we move into our last port, sadly, but Olden.
So Olden was kind of like the big fjord day. They let you know that they were going to be entering the fjord at 5 a.m. and that there would be coffee and pastries up on the front, and it was packed. It
was packed. Yeah.
I think I was up there by 6:30, and there were just tons of people up there as we were kind of going through the fjords. And not only, I think Anna said this on our snippets, but it was cool to see not only like the guests, up there taking pictures, but there was crew members up there.
Like they hadn't seen it before either.
Yeah.
It was cool. Yeah.
Snapping pictures, taking pictures of themselves.
Yeah.
And everything else. And, they were all enjoying coffee and just kind of pointing out things as we went through. So it took, I think we entered at 5 and we got into Olden probably about like 9 in the morning. So it was a good 4 hours of cruising through. And if you had your own cabin with the balcony, you could have just sat out there as well too. It's not like Alaska where they have environmentalists on board. There's nothing like that. There's also, no commentary as you're going through. The next day they went to a specific thing that they talked about and pointed out, but it was just beautiful to see the scenery and the little houses and everything else we went by.
Did you choose to go upstairs because of the vibe? I mean, you had sleeping kids too.
Yeah, well, honestly, it's because I've become addicted to the Cove Cafe coffee.
I have to say that's the one thing that the one thing is the wrong word, but that's one of my favorite features of the Wish is you could like literally walk out your cabin and like go down a couple flights of stairs maybe, and they have that coffee that's just right there in the center, basically, that you can easily get most of the time.
It wasn't too crowded, although the coffee maker in the concierge lounge, there's a lot of consternation about this.
The problem
was down for a couple days, and so all those concierge guests were coming into the Cove, and I was like, wait a minute, this is our space. You guys need
I would have been so angry if I had to pay for my coffee after I paid for my
They didn't have to pay.
Oh.
Yeah, they were like giving some token. I don't know what they were flashing something.
They did have, or it's like on their
card probably.
Yeah. But no, it was just more to get the car. And it was cool to be up there.
That's funny.
And just seeing people like taking the scenery.
Yeah. Sometimes it's nice to experience that kind of stuff with other people.
Right.
Yeah. But we just sat on the balcony quite a bit this time too.
Yeah, for sure.
So Olden, you literally park next to the road. There's there's nothing.
Like you're on a river cruise.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a teeny little town at the kind of the end point of the fjord.
Yeah. And so there was like a bar that was playing music later. But what we had planned was we wanted to go up. What most people wanted to do was go see a glacier. So there's all kinds of tourists at glacier, but we've seen glaciers before. So go see a glacier wasn't that big a deal for us. But there was one where you went up into the mountains on a lift, and then you did like a hike. And I thought that sounded like the most exciting because like looking where you're going to hike was looking down over like different aspects of the fjord and just looking down into other fjords as well. So go ahead, Wake.
I will say I maybe misunderstood because I didn't really realize we're going to do an actual hike. I kind of thought we were going to go up and like there was just a little like walking loop on the top of the mountain, and it was more of a real hike. Probably 3/4 of the way up, it was actually decent weather, and then it started to rain and be windy.
Yeah, it was almost like ice pellets kind of hitting your face, but I mean the scenery was amazing. It's a story that we'll always remember.
Well, I mean, when we all talk about it later about what was our favorite thing that we did on the cruise, all of us were like, well, that hike was really cool. It didn't deter the enjoyment.
Right. What was the saying in Norway?
There is no bad weather, there's only bad clothing.
Yeah.
And we did not have good clothing. We did not have the right clothing.
It wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad, but it could have been better.
Yeah, but that was just for one. Anyways, Norway, kind of like Alaska, bring layers, bring a raincoat for sure. Even
for everything.
Even in the summer.
You need to take out your phone. I was busy looking at what I'm telling people to look at that I didn't even notice I was muted. But put in Olden, Norway, and then zoom out until you can get to the actual ocean. That's a really long fjord that you went through.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Very excited for you guys.
So that was probably about 4 hours doing that. We came back and you and Wake and the kids were tired, so they went back. Cold. And I just walked into the little town. There wasn't
so that was the day you walked around.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot there. There's a couple gift shops. They're building a brewery that's not quite there yet. A lot of Viking themed stuff. And so, but it was just cool. There was a little church in the town, which is kind of cool to see and stuff. But it was cool. It was just the scenery is just amazing. When you look at the trolls in Frozen and you see like the moss and the rocks and everything like that, you see where
the idea came from.
Where the idea for that came from. I mean, the idea's been there forever from the Norwegians, but you see why they incorporated that into the movie. It was really, really beautiful. And probably one of the funnest things was leaving Olden that day was there were a couple little little houses and stuff up beyond the road. And as we left, they were playing different music. They had
like all like American music,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah, well, I'm trying to remember the song. There was a song that was like kind of a traveling song that they played like as the ship was leaving. But then there was like all kinds of people with their Norwegian flags. They were like waving the flags as we left and everything. And there was like somebody with an air horn that was kind of having fun with the dream. They were blasting like 3 blasts, and then the dream would blast 3 blasts, and then you do like a really short blast, and the dream would do a short blast. And
it was a nice send off.
Yeah, it was
Fun.
a nice
Yeah,
little fun send off. And then it was, like, as you said, a nice sailing outside of the fjord. It was light until probably 9:30, 10:30, I think, is when sunset was every night there. So that was the night we went to Paolo and just kind of took in the scenery as we left. But it was that night as we were leaving Olden that they let us know that we weren't going to be going to Haugesund the next day, because the weather system was kind of just following us the whole time. And I guess it's a really narrow channel for them to park or to dock the boat. And to get down that, they said there was going to be up to gale force winds. And so it was going to be dangerous being able to dock there. And I kind of followed that just on the weather app. It was a pretty rainy, crummy day. We were supposed to bike and we're going to do some shopping and stuff. But pro tip, as Christy said, when you get on the ship, go buy something right away, and then you can always return it. You're cruising through Norway, I guess, maybe, or some places, if you see something and you're in the same country for a long time, maybe buy it and not wait till the last day, because
we were going to buy stuff and then didn't.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, we'll do that in Haugesund. It'll be great. And then Andrew and I both had some stuff that we were thinking.
There's a lot of people talking about that on the ship that last day, but
what were you going to buy?
Me, some fuzzy socks, and like sort of like fuzzy slipper socks, like calf high.
Yeah.
And like the first time I saw them, I was like, that's ridiculous. Those things are ridiculous. And then you see them the second time, I was like, I wonder how hot your feet would be in those. And then we saw them at the little restaurant up at the top of the gondola before the hike. And I was like, well, I'm sure they're more expensive here than they would be just in a regular shop in town. I'll get them tomorrow. Now I want them. I thought about it. Now I think that I would like to have some of those slipper socks. And now we have to go back to Norway because I did not get them.
Well, I'm going next year, so remind me. I'll get you some slippers.
Yeah.
I'll get you some slipper socks.
Shopping life for you. And I don't remember what Andrew's thing was. He had something that he
sent over his girlfriend. I can't remember. Anyways.
So Steve and I were texting earlier today about the port expenses, because somebody was asking me if you got your port expenses refunded and you thought you didn't. Well, I called Disney and port expenses were actually refunded on the day after the cruise ended, but it was on a form of payment that you made. And I feel like probably everybody had Disney gift cards. And so you have to find the Disney gift card, because remember when Costco came out with that discount for Disney gift cards and everybody bought them. And so both of my clients' onboard credits are on a Disney gift card. But Disney will give you the number of the gift card except for the last 4. So as long as you have the rest of the gift card or the list that you use to create the payment, you can then go and get your $30 back.
So I did go back. I looked at the folio when you asked me, and it wasn't on the folio, but then
it's not.
Yeah, it was
because it was the day after.
Yeah, and it was reimbursed on my credit card. So yeah,
you never used the gift card. You didn't get the Costco gift cards.
Didn't do the Costco gift cards.
No.
So there you go.
Any other thoughts on Norway or the sailing in general?
I guess I would say just that last day when they missed the port of Haugesund, they crammed the day full of stuff. They quickly pivoted. Did a whole bunch of stuff. Because the weather was bad.
Added trivia, added shows, added music. Added
they did
of stuff. Yeah.
They did like a Descendants, whatever the Descendants show that's coming out. They played that in the Walt Disney Theater. That they were able to play that before it went live on Disney Plus. So they kind of did some cool things for people. And then they went up a fjord and they talked about this waterfall, which is just amazing. They said we're going to go up there, stay out of the weather, and just kind of hang out in the fjord for part of the morning. And it was amazing. Just went right up the waterfall, and they did like a 360,
like they do at the glacier,
in Alaska.
That's really cool.
So everybody could get pictures of it and everything else. But from there, it was. And then once we started heading south, the weather just slowly got nicer. It was a great sea day, just to kind of relax.
It was beautiful, yeah.
And then we had another sea day, which I think we all kind of needed, and it was beautiful. It was like being in the Caribbean. It was sunny. And blue water. The music was out. Had a great time that day too. So nothing like a sea day.
So I'm curious how your packing went for Northern Europe, and if you made any mistakes, what you would recommend.
Layers, for sure. I think that realizing that far north, fall starts in August rather than September. Weather-wise, I probably should have had more like waterproof pants, like stuff that was, I had stuff that was warm, but I didn't really have clothes. I didn't have enough rain type clothes. Should have had some fuzzy socks.
And what about shoes? Did you have hiking shoes or waterproof?
Well,
like hiking shoes or hiking boots?
What I was saying for me personally, like with the realizing that fall comes early, I should have known better. But in the summer around here, I hike in Keens, which I also wore. I had those for kayaking because they're good water shoes. But so I did throw some socks on under them, but it was not. My feet were cold and wet by the end, which wasn't my best choice.
I have a dumb kayaking question because we have booked kayaking for one of our port stops next year. And do your feet get wet in the kayak?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I think if you were in a place well, we also they gave us drip skirts. So it was like you were kind of covered. So
You're like sealed.
Yeah, you're kind of like it goes around the edge of the kayak. But I mean, I think like if you were in a place like Hawaii or the Caribbean or someplace like that, where you're going to get, drips from the paddle are going to get on you. Yeah, you might get a little bit wet, but you're not going to be sitting in water or soaked or.
Okay. So your feet are like not in water at the bottom of your kayak.
No.
I guess my recommendation would be to have like a light raincoat and like something that you could put like a fleece underneath there.
Right.
And that's really all you kind of need. And then as far as shoes go for guys, at least, some type of like Columbia makes them. I'm trying to think of, there's like a good REI or whatever else you can find, like just kind of a lightweight hiking shoe that
is waterproof.
It's also waterproof too. Mm-hmm. That works for just hanging around the towns too. If you end up doing something a little bit more substantial, like going through a hike or something.
And actually REI is having theirs. So whenever this goes out, people can listen. They're having their end of the year sale. And I'm actually going to look to upgrade a pair of shoes for Dave. That's something a little more lightweight. I have lighter waterproof hiking shoes. And then Blake, they grow every 5 seconds. So I just have to wait till next year to buy him something.
I mean, like, I don't know. I would get something like even like a trail running shoe, like that's like comfortable that you can use but it's a little bit more substantial as far as being able to, keep the weather out.
For sure.
Okay, so then your cruise ends. Very sad.
It was very sad.
But your trip's not over.
No, we still have 5 more days in England, so, but yeah.
Which is crazy.
Knocking Wake's poor thing out. Yeah, we still had 5 more days in England, and so we kind of pivoted from that to going to explore around England. But yeah, I think for us, this just works really good. Be able to spend time in a country or 2 different countries, and then, break it up at some point with a cruise where you go see a bunch of other different countries, but it's easy. You don't have to pack and unpack. And just for us, I think that's our secret sauce for Europe. We love doing that.
For sure. It's good.
So you went to Stonehenge after the cruise, which we talked about this on a Norway recording that we did last week or 2 weeks ago, very recently. And they said it's a great stop on the way to or from the airport, for example, because it's not really on the way, but you can make it there. So did you guys like it? Did you find Wake is making a face?
I've been wanting to go for a long time because I did like backpacking through Europe after college, and England was the end of that trip, and the bus out there wasn't covered on our Eurail pass, and so we would have had to pay for it, and we were not on that kind of budget at that age. And so we did not go. And it was definitely worth seeing, like if it works into whatever else you have planned. I don't know that I would like fly to London specifically to go to Stonehenge, but I totally enjoyed it. I love the history of it, just it's kind of funky and cool. And how did this happen? And
it's probably about an hour and a half worth of time, and I put it in. Right. I'd lump it in as like a piece, kind of one of those kind of things where if you stop by, see it,
oh, there it is,
take it in, and then continue on to the port.
I feel like it's a good thing to do on the way to the port because, and that's what these other guests did. You don't really have anything else to do in the morning, so just get up, go to there, get to your port, eat lunch, and go on with your day.
Like I think I would be nervous getting off the ship and stopping there on the way to the airport, like to go home. I think that would make me nervous. You don't know what traffic's going to be like and the airport's going to be like, but like going from your hotel in London to swing in there and do a late port arrival time, I think would be fun.
Here's a pro tip which we learned from our taxi driver. Now, granted, this came from the taxi driver, but I bet if you, I kind of believe it. Maybe he was a good guy. If you get off the ship and you don't have some type of private transportation booked back to the airport and you're leaving that day, you will pay more money going to the train the train can be very slow, and buying train tickets than you will just getting off the ship and getting in the taxi line and getting the taxi and taking it to Heathrow.
Passenger count doesn't matter in the taxi, but passenger count matters when you're buying the train ticket.
So if there's just two of you, maybe you would be cutting it close, but four of us, take the taxi. Don't mess with trying to take the bus to the train to the whatever.
You can't really walk from the port to the train. Like, it was sort of chaos.
And this could be a good time too to take Disney transportation or whatever cruise line you're taking.
Sure. Yeah.
Just, jump on that bus and take it to. But how much did it cost for the cab?
I think he was saying, what did he say? It was like $60 to go to Heathrow, 60 pounds.
60 euro per pound.
60 pounds. So that's, probably about 70. And if you look at the Disney transportation, I bet you it's going to be a lot more.
Yeah. So cab is cheaper.
Yeah. And the cab line went quick too.
It did.
We took the cab over to the little airport that was in Southampton to get our rental car.
Oh, so he told you what the price was, but you didn't pay that because you just went to Southampton.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. So how is driving in England?
It was fun. You know what? The only thing I will, no, it wasn't that bad. But I got in the car. Not only did you have to drive on the left hand side, but I realized it was an automatic. I mean, it wasn't automatic. It was manual. Yeah, it was a stick. So
the first thing we said when we got in the car was, so Andrew's car is a manual transmission, and we're like, that's be great if you ever want to be on The Amazing Race. You got to learn how to drive a manual transmission car. And then when we got in the car in Southampton, and we said to Alex, we're like, okay, so you clearly also have to learn how to drive. We can't get rid of that car before it's time to teach the next one to drive. It's good life skill.
Yeah, but it was just some pretty narrow little lanes, that's for sure, going through.
There were some narrow lanes that Steve said, I will not turn there. You have to reroute us.
There was one that was literally so narrow that I think the hedgerows would have been touching either side of the car. Yeah. And I'm like, what happens when somebody's coming the other way? I'm going down this road.
I've already been on multiple roads where it was basically a lane and a half. It was a lot.
You're hugging the other side of the road. You're off the shoulder. Yeah. There's not even a shoulder.
And so
you're
turned down one that was clearly just one lane. He was like, no, I will not do that.
But I will say people are very friendly. I mean, they're
really considerate
about everybody knows what's kind of going on. So they're pretty considerate. So if you're adventurous, go for it.
Yeah. That's awesome. One of our listeners is planning to drive next year. And I was like, I'm going to record with Steve. And he's just driving in London. Or England. I'm going to ask him.
Well, I made it 5 days without putting a dent in it. So
we did pay for the extra insurance though, just
in case.
Smart. Check your
Go team manual.
Right.
All right, cool.
Any other highlights on your extra days in England then?
So we also went to Bath, and we went to the baths, actually, it's like an audio tour, self-guided audio tour. That was cool. Again, something that I wanted to see, that I don't know that I would go out of my way to just go to the bath, but I definitely enjoyed it. And then, and I don't remember where I saw it, but we had dinner that night at a Nepalese restaurant called Yeti Yak. Really good. Super good. Sat on cushions, and yeah, it was really, really good food. And then we did some trip down memory lane for Steve, went to World War II Museum, and then saw where he lived as a kid, the Air Force Base. And then we went to Windsor Castle, which I also was on my list of things that I wanted to do. So, and I think everyone enjoyed that. Again, like audio guide tour, and I think everyone enjoyed that more than they expected.
Yeah, I would say if anybody's in the Cambridge area, which is where we live, there's a RAF base called Duxford, and it's kind of like their version of the Smithsonian, the Imperial War Museum, and they've got actual planes that go all the way from the World War II era up to not just like World War II type planes, but they've also got commercial planes and stuff like that, and a lot of them fly. So it was kind of cool to see a Spitfire and a Hurricane actually flying while we were there. But I will say Cambridge, we stumbled on a tour. We had the worst guide in England.
That's
worst one, yeah, Tony. If anybody's going to Cambridge and wants a really good guide to take you around Cambridge, to kind of tell you the history of the town and the college and everything else, reach out to Christy or me, and I'll get you there because I've got Tony's card. He was phenomenal.
He was great. Yeah.
Amazing. So yeah, it was cool seeing him. And then stick with the flying thing. There's a bar across from one of the colleges where Watson and Crick actually helped discover the double helix or DNA, and they made their announcement in the Eagle Bar. But also the Eagle Bar has another section where it's called the RAF Bar, and so during World War II, a lot of the pilots kind of hung out there.
British and American,
and up on the ceiling they had drawn things with lipstick and then fired it so that it kind of stayed, and they've kept that as a,
like, they would all sign their names on the ceiling.
Yeah, and that was kind of cool.
They would head out on
kind of cool to see that. I mean, there's just so much history. I mean, it's kind of funny, like being at Windsor Castle, they were talking about something that happened like in the 1100s and think about America.
Right.
Not to pick on America or anything like that. There's just so much varied history over there. So Cambridge was a really cool town. Bath was fun to wander around as well. So those are some of my highlights, I guess.
Yeah.
Awesome. So then I have just a couple more questions for you. First off, did you have any notable cast interactions from your cruise that we haven't hit on already?
Our serve team was really good.
Yeah, and then just Danny, the sommelier was awesome. So he was just fun.
The guys in the Cove.
Yeah, the guys in the guys down back in Meridian too.
Oh, they were awesome,
Yeah,
actually. Like
yeah.
all three of the bartenders in Meridian, Willie, Louise.
Yeah, and yeah, she's going to the treasure.
Right.
Yeah.
They were great. They were like so personable and so just made, I mean, I think that can maybe be an intimidating space for people, and especially people don't really realize you can go sit up there and have a drink if you're not going to one of those restaurants for dinner. And they were just so warm and welcoming and
Beautiful scenery. Look it up.
yeah, I mean, beautiful scenery. And most of the time we were the only ones in there. You know, maybe like one or two other people. That was a highlight.
That is where we did learn. Can I say this about the 3 and 4 night? Yes. So why does Disney do 3 and 4 night cruises so much? Because the spend drops off after 4 nights pretty dramatically. And so I think like you and I were texting about that, and Christy is like, that's why, they can turn the ships over and get everybody back on. So you wonder why. There's like like the Wish, and then we see with the Destiny coming out of Fort Lauderdale as well, doing 5 nights. So
4 and 5 nights.
Yeah, 4 and 5 nights. Anyways, kind of interesting.
Also, why most cruises start with a sea day, so you can
Yes.
spend your money on board on the first day.
Right.
Exactly. And if they could go to a private island where you can spend your money too, that'd be even better, right? So there you go. But yeah.
Well, this is always a pretty good question for the Creasy family. What is next for you?
Oh, what is next?
We are going to follow yours and Katie's footsteps and go to Alani for Christmas.
Oh yeah, that is the next.
So we'll be in Alani at Christmas, and then
And Andrew will actually have a wristband then.
yes, we booked the Treasure in March, and
Another ABD.
yeah, Peru
Peru.
next summer, and then we just got all caught up with being over in England and Europe, and it's like can't wait another year without going to Europe. So Wake and I booked the British Isles in September.
For just the two of us.
On the Fantasy, so that's what we got planned.
Which is perfect segue, I guess, to my question that I had. My final question is, you've done Europe on the Magic many times. Now you have the Dream. You're going to be on the Fantasy, the best ship, by the way. I guess, what is your take on the larger ships versus the smaller?
I was concerned at first that in some of those little towns, it'll be too many people. And especially in places like Santorini, where there's multiple other ships. And I was like, oh my goodness, we don't need to be adding another 1,500 people on this Disney ship to that crew, or that space or whatever. But I come to appreciate it, I guess. And it doesn't seem overcrowded. I mean, Santorini seems overcrowded, but that's a whole different ball of wax. But the ship doesn't. And there were some differences in this cruise versus the one that we did 8 years ago, because the ship is bigger. Like you had to park in a different spot, but it didn't really matter. It wasn't like, oh, that one was great and this one was not great. They were equally great. It was just different.
Yeah, I think they got it figured out. Like the Greece cruise last year, they were kind of struggling with the numbers as far as getting people onto and off the ship, as far as doing some of the port adventures, and everything kind of was like clockwork. I think they've kind of figured out how to manage a bigger ship and the crowds.
I agree.
Yeah, I like it. I like whatever ships in Europe. I'm happy.
We're gonna go. Yeah, we're not gonna be like, oh no, we can't do that. But yeah, definitely feel like on the sea days, it's nice that there's more spaces and that they're bigger spaces. So that is actually appealing.
Yeah, like around the adult areas, which we were usually kind of hanging out. There's definitely more options there as far as like finding places to hang out.
Although that is the thing about having a now adult child. We would walk through the pool area and he'd be in the pool with his people. And it was like, oh, geez, can't be like hanging out with the teenagers, those parents, So then we're really got to figure out where to go. We're not in the way.
So I guess I don't know if I really have an answer other than that. I mean, love all those ships that have been over there, but it seems like they had it going like clockwork.
Yeah.
This time they got it figured out now. This with the bigger ships.
Is the Magic still your favorite ship?
I love the Dunk.
The Aquadunk. I guess this is what I've come to. I appreciate the reason why the Magic was like such a magical ship to us is kind of the destinations that we went with it.
Right.
I will definitely make a point of getting on the Magic before it goes away. But I don't know if I have a favorite really right now.
I would say probably Fantasy.
Yeah. Team Fantasy.
Team Fantasy.
I like the spaces on it.
Fantasy is a solid ship, but so is the Magic. Well, anything else before we take us out here?
No, I think that's about it. Thanks so much for having us back, and hopefully we didn't babble on too long.
No.
But just a great vacation, and it was a fun time. So thanks for having us back on, you guys. And you guys are doing a great job with the podcast. I love listening to all the different shows that you've been coming out with, and it was great looking at the Destiny as she's coming out as well. So that show. So thanks for all you guys are doing to keep it going.
Well, thank you. And it was super nice to see your face and hear your voice again. And I know all of our listeners will appreciate that as well.
Always good to have Steve back on the show. And thank you as well, Wake, for joining us. And thank you so much for recapping your Norwegian Fjords cruise as well as your ABD Short Escape. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on the DCL podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show. Once again, we want to thank Wake and Steve for coming on and sharing their adventures on the Disney Dream in Norway. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailing and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.